Lewis. All right. For those of you joining us now on Workshop 2, we have Louis Scuderi, who is a member of the Board of Directors for the Albuquerque Folk Festival. Seems that you were born here in Albuquerque. Is that right?
I was actually born in LA, but
okay.
but I grew up mostly here.
You grew up here. You play multiple instruments: mandolin, bouzouki, guitar, as well as.
A few of them, yeah.
But your main love, or first love, I should say, was cello.
Yes, you can see my cello back behind me here.
That's great. And you like music comes from Scotland, Ireland, contemporary American folk. And you've been playing traditional music since you were 11 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And you're a regular session player and a member of several bands. Most notably as lead singer of Celtic Waves, the premier Celtic band residing in Oahu. How do you get a gig like that?
You go out there for graduate school and you love music.
All right, I think that's fabulous. So without any further ado, we'll turn this over to Louis, who I think we're all ready to go.
Yeah, I'm ready to go. Thanks so much, Bill. I'm going to put in chat here for everybody my handout, which has, I guess there's really two parts to it. The first part, I'll show you here on my screen, if I can get it up and running. First part here is I have a little description, and then you have a bunch of chords. I guess I put it in two sections. I first wanted to put in D chords in DADGAD tuning, and it's just going through the whole scale in D, and we'll work through those. And then I put in some alternate extra chords that I use a lot when I'm doing this tuning. So we'll walk through those as we do this workshop. But first of all, I want to welcome everyone here. Boy, I can only see a couple of people on the top of the screen. Maybe I can scroll through. I hope you guys will play along. First of all, let's just get our guitars into DADGAD tuning. It's named DADGAD because that is the notes that the strings are tuned to. If you want to be real technical about it, it's also technically called modal D tuning. So your lowest string here is going to be tuned to D. If you're going from standard tuning, that's going to go down a whole step, from an E down to a D. So take a second to adjust that one. The next string up, thankfully, doesn't change. It's still an A. It was an A in standard tuning, and it's an A in this tuning. Hooray for us. The next string up from that is also going to stay as a D. It was a D in standard tuning, and it's still a D. The next string up from that. Why am I buzzing? I don't know. I'll turn that down a little bit. There we go. The next string up also doesn't change, thankfully. It stays a G. So those three three strings in a row, A, D, G, don't change at all from standard tuning. That's nice. The bottom one we went down to a low D, kind of like a drop D tuning. The top string, which was an E in standard tuning, is going to go down to a D as well. So it's going to be octave to your lowest string. And then the string, the second string, the one that is a B in standard tuning, is going to go down, as again, a half step to another A. So you can, when I'm tuning DADGAD, I like to do my octave Ds there, all in unison. So bottom string, which used to be a low E, and the middle D string, which doesn't change, and then the high D string, which is a note down from the high E string where it was. And then I like to also tune the A strings. So there's a low A string, which didn't change from standard tuning, and then there's a high A string, which went down a whole step from a B in standard tuning. And really, if I play all the open strings without fretting, that's what it kind of sounds like. So I'm hoping that was enough time for people to get into something approximating tuning. Of course, this is folk music we're doing, so it's tuning is sometimes optional. I always say when I'm on stage, we tune because we care, and it's true. So I hope you guys have that handout up. I'm going to try to switch back and forth between my chord diagrams here and showing you my actual fingerboard. We're going to just go through these chord diagrams here. One by one, we're going to go up the scale, the D major scale in chords. Now these are not even close to all the chords that exist in DADGAD. There's so many. Part of that handout that I posted is actually, the second half of it is someone went through and compiled damn near every darn chord you could find in DADGAD. It's so, I mean, there's so many there. There's plenty I haven't even seen, and I've been playing DADGAD exclusively for about 10 years, maybe 15 now, if I actually think about it. So there's a lot of richness and options. So first of all, I think everyone will be thrilled to hear that the easiest and, for me, the most common D chord that I actually use is this first one here on the top left. It's a D no third, and it's just a single fret, second fret on your G string there, the third string from the top, and there is your D chord. I'm hoping everyone can hear that chord all right. It's a really nice D chord because it's very multi-purpose. You'll notice if you know any music theory, if you know anything like that, there is no third in this chord, so it's not major or minor in particular. It's just got fifths, basically. It's a D, A, D, A, D, A, A, D at the end. So just D's and A's. And it sounds really nice and rich, I think. And you can use it for both minor and major, so if I was going to do a major progression, I could start here with D. Right, a nice major progression. Or if I want to do a minor progression, I can use the exact same chord here, and then I can go to a minor. Something like that. So that chord is great because you don't have to worry about, is this the D minor or D major version. It's just kind of minor major agnostic. It doesn't care. And I think of it as sort of the root starting point for any chord progression in DADGAD. At least as if I'm playing these chord shapes. There's plenty of other chord shapes you can play. I didn't want to really get into those today because we only have half an hour. So everyone try to strum that a couple times and get it sounding real nice and kind of ringy. One of the nice things about DADGAD is all those open strings really ring just beautifully. I like to think of it as like trying to make the guitar as close to a bagpipe as possible with those drones, those low drones. At least that's my philosophy towards it. So let's look at that next chord there, E minor 7. So if we're going up the scale, a D major scale, E minor 7 is the next chord. I really like this chord because it sounds, I don't know, it sounds a little bit mysterious to me. It's unresolved, really. And I'm going to show you my fingers here real quick. So I've got 2 and 3 on here. The diagram says 1 and 2, but I have 2 and 3. Just because that's kind of how I like to fret it. I have strange hands. I don't know if you can really see it that well. There's another chord very similar to it. If you bar the bottom 3 strings on the 2nd fret, instead of letting the D string ring open, that's just an E minor without a 7. That 7 is that D string being able to ring. And I sometimes use that too. That's a pretty common chord in my arsenal. I would use it in different time. I mean, it sounds, as you can hear, it sounds pretty similar. But that extra D there in the middle of the chord does make it a nice 7 chord. So everyone, let's try to just strum that a couple of times. I think these fingerings are pretty easy relative to a lot of standard tuning chords, right? So, even a G chord takes some getting used to, and I always had a lot of trouble with a D chord in standard tuning because you have to kind of twist your fingers around, but these guys are not so bad. So if we go from our D major, or D no third, I guess, you can hear that it's kind of going up the scale there, right? So there's those 2. To add the 3rd one in there, it's the D/F sharp. And again, this is another kind of suspended sort of chord. It's got a lot of stuff going on in it. So what you got your third finger there on the low D string on the 4th fret, and your first finger on the second second fret of the middle D string, and you mute the top string. This chord I almost always use as a passing chord. It's not something that I will play out a whole lot. So if I'm doing some sort of progression, like say I'm going from my D no third up to what our next one is going to be a G. A lot of times in a chord sequence, I'm going to be playing something like a passing that D slash F sharp there, and I'm really hitting that bass note, that F sharp in the bass on the low D string, and it's not. I'm really rarely playing a full chord there, unless I'm playing a slow sort of very melodic song. But these little passing notes can be really just add so much flavor. I play a lot of Irish and Scottish music, so if I'm playing like a jig rhythm, if I have like an ascending run with that E minor 7 and the D slash F sharp in the middle, it gives it a really nice flavor. So just with the chords we've learned, maybe I'm playing a jig rhythm. Something like that, and those little that I went from D to E minor 7 to the D F sharp up to a G, which we're going to do next, and I just like that little rising progression in it. I think it really gives it a lot of energy, especially with those chord voicings. All right, and then the next one that I wanted to teach you guys is this G that I just did, and this is a really interesting chord. There's so many different variations of it that I use all the time. The one that I've tabbed out here with your second finger barred on the 5th fret and your first finger on the 4th fret on the 4th string there is probably music theory-wise the correct, quote-unquote, correct chord. I don't always play it like that, though. Oftentimes, if I'm playing in D, right, it's actually kind of nice to have that A and D string on the top of that chord. I have them muted here in the little diagram, but it's kind of nice to have them on the top because it lends that extra character. I don't know, it's kind of like those, like I said, the drones on a bagpipe still going. And there's a couple other ways to play this chord. You could also, instead of barring your second finger across that 5th fret, you could, I'm going to switch to my fretboard view here, you could instead put your second and third finger just on the low A and D strings there and leave that D string open. And it's a little bit of a different voicing. But the one that I use the most often is actually even simpler than that. I just put my second finger on that 5th fret on the low D string, and I keep my first finger on the 4th fret on the G string there, and I kind of halfway mute this A string with my second finger. I just halfway kind of play almost a harmonic on it. And one of my favorite players, Jim Malcolm, who's an incredible Scots guitarist and amazing singer, one of my musical heroes, he says that a lot of the magic of the DADGAD tuning comes from that ability to play this kind of chord, or this chord shape, with that sort of muted harmonic string. I don't know if you can really hear that harmonic. I don't know how well it's catching it on my mic, but having that in there really kind of makes it a magic chord, I think. Okay, and actually this is a nice chord shape. If you want one version of an A chord, is just to move this same chord shape that we're working on with the G up 2 frets to from your second finger on the 5th fret up to 7th fret. There's your A. Or if you play the if you play that other alternate sort of fingering, you can get different sounds. You can't see my fingers. Huh. Well, I'll do my best to make them more visible here. But yeah, this is a nice chord shape, this G that we just learned, because you can move it just up 2 frets and make an A. And actually, I didn't put this chord in this particular little handout, but if you move it down 2 frets to where you're barring on the 3rd fret, you get a nice F. So F isn't in the D major scale, right? F sharp is in the D major scale. So this chord won't be in our scale here, but you can get all sorts of different keys going there. So there's our G chord. All right. I'm hoping we're okay to move on. We're about halfway through, and we've done about half the chords in the first half. So maybe I need to pick up the pace a little bit. Okay, A minor 7 here. The A chord, the 5 chord in this particular little chord scale, is actually another one that has a ton of different fingerings, and there's some more down below on this handout that I provided. My favorite one is just this one with a single finger, just one finger, and it's just this. It's almost exactly the same as that D no 3rd chord we started out with. Just you move your finger up 1 string from there to there, basically, and make sure not to hit that bottom D string because it doesn't really ring well with this chord. I do actually a lot of times hit that top D string, even though I say it's muted here. I think it adds a nice thing to the actual sound of the chord. So this is my favorite really simple chord. If you're looking for a really nice simple progression, you have your D no 3rd, your G that we just learned, and then your 1 finger A minor 7. That's 1 4 5 right there. So you know, if I'm playing a really simple jig, and plenty of tunes are like this. Like that, a really nice little simple progression, and I think it's such a different voicing from standard tuning, from what everyone's so used to for so long, that it gives you a really nice flavor. And it's just, they're dead simple chords, which is one of the things I like best about DADGAD, is it really doesn't make you work all that hard. If you want a full-on A chord, I think I have it actually down below in this handout. Let me scroll down to it, because it's worth it to see that. There it is. Well, there's one of them. I don't know if we want to... yeah, there's that one. I didn't actually put this other fingering in here. So let's go back to this A minor 7 here that we started out with, the 1 finger one. And we're going to add to that our 2nd finger and our 3rd finger. Our 2nd finger is going to go on the 2nd fret right next to our 1st finger on the G string, that 4th string down from the top. So, and then we're going to put our 3rd finger on the 2nd fret on the high D string, the top string, and that is a full-on A chord. Again, it's very much like our D no 3rd, because this one has no 3rd. We're getting a A, E, A, E again. So just A's and E's, so all 5ths. So it's a very similar voicing to this D no 3rd, which makes it a really nice sort of contrast to that D no 3rd. And it, you know, if you're looking to get really advanced about chord voicings, that's something you can play around with. While we're still on the A chords, I want to show you what has weirdly become my favorite chord. It's this A minor 7 alternate. So it's similar to the one we just played with the 1 finger. No top string there. Except you put your I actually use my 3rd finger. It says 2nd finger here, but I use my 3rd finger because I have cramped hands sometimes. On that 3rd fret on the high A string there. And it makes this, I don't know, kind of nice, really nice, kind of mysterious A minor chord. This one I learned from Jim Malcolm, and it's just one of my favorites. It doesn't fit in every single song. It doesn't fit in every single progression, but when I can find a place to use it, you know, I probably overuse it when I can find somewhere that it works. It's just such a nice little chord. All right, let's head back to where we were, though. So we're in our progression here. So we've done D no 3rd, we've done E minor, F sharp / D, G, and then we have an A, to get to the minor 6th chord, which is a really important chord for many progressions. There's a lot of different fingerings for this particular guy, but the simplest one is just to take that A minor 7 we just played with one finger and move that finger down to the low A string on the 2nd fret. And this is a G over B chord, so it's serving sort of as the relative minor of our chord system here. I don't know how many people are super into music theory, but it's a really nice. I really like putting this chord in. Another alternate fingering here. Oh, you know what? I am not showing you the actual chord diagrams, am I? Let me transition to that. There's your chord diagram. Sorry about that. So there's your A minor 7, and here's your G/B, G over B. Just another single finger chord. You know, a lot of these are really simple. We have our D note 3rd single finger, our A minor 7 single finger, and G over B single finger. If you want to get more complicated with this particular one, I'll show you a couple alternates. So we'll start there with our first finger on the 2nd fret of the A string, the low A string, and we're going to add our 3rd finger to the what is it? The 4th fret of the G string there, the 4th string down from the top of the guitar. And I think it sounds a little bit more authentically minor with this extra note. So that versus what we had before. And I will go back and forth between these two different voicings all the time when I'm playing a particular any particular tune. So maybe the first time I'm playing through a tune, I'll just go with a really simple chord, and the second time I'll go to the more complex voicing. And there's a third voicing for a well, just lost my pick. There's a third voicing for a more appropriate B minor chord over here. I'm going to transition just to show you the diagram here really quick. It's right here, and it's up at the 7th fret. You start at the 7th fret. So we had our D, our G, A, 2 frets above that. It's a similar shape to what we had before with the G chord, only it's a little stretched out because we've dropped that major 3rd to a minor 3rd on the 7th fret there. So this is a little bit more of a full voicing for an actual B minor chord. I'll switch back to my fingers here. We're up here on the fret. I don't know if you can see my fret markers. 7th fret, 9th fret. So I'm barring on the 9th fret, and I have a 1st finger on the 4th, the G string on the 7th fret. And I think of that as a more full and fully voiced minor chord. So I think in certain places it fits better. And I play around all 3 of those alternatives for the B over G or the B minor. I use them completely interchangeably with each other, and I really like playing around with, if I'm doing a tune with someone 3 times through, I will use all 3 of those multiple times, just to get different flavors going on in my progression. Okay, we got about 5 minutes left. I want to show you the last 2 chords, or the last chord in the scale really quick, and the rest will be homework. How about that?
Lewis, you started a little late, so if you want to take another, 10 minutes total, I think that'd be fine.
All right. The last chord in the full progression here is an A over C sharp. There's a lot of different ways to play this. I do think the best way to play this is the one that I've given here. And there's a lot of tension in this chord, right? It's this guy here in the bottom left of the screen right now. I'm going to switch back over to my fingers. There's a lot of tension in this chord. So again, this is another, like the F sharp over D. This is another passing chord. This is not one you would play out a lot. You know, you're not going to be sitting on it droning like an. It's one that's creating tension, and you know, you want to move on probably fairly quickly from it, unless you're doing something, you know, crazy and modern and jazzy, which is totally valid. So that one is, yeah, just really a passing chord, and usually we pass from that chord back to D, which all you have to do is take that third finger off the A string, and you're there back to your D no third, right next to it. So let's really quickly play through just this quick scale. I hope you guys have the handout there. I'm going to keep this on my finger because people keep asking to see my fingers, so I'm going to keep it on there. We're going to go through pretty slowly. I'll call out the chords, and I'll try to show you the shapes here with my hand. We'll go real slow, and we'll just do a couple strums, not in rhythm, and we'll just go through them. So first off, let's go back to that D major, or that D no third, not a major. Just strum it a couple times. And let's go to that E minor. Remember, it's those two fingers there. Then that F sharp over D. And then we're going up to the G shape. There's a lot of different choices you can make here. When I'm playing this chord progression, very often go up to this because it's this version of A, because it's right next to this G. But if we go with the one that's in the handout, we just go back down to first position, and we're using just one finger again. So let's all strum that. And if you want to be complete A, about there. And then there's the one finger B/G chord. Again, there's more choices. There's that extra voicing, and there's this extra voicing. So that's where we are. And then our A/C sharp, that tense chord, that's the 7 chord. It's really not meant to sound nice, it's meant to resolve into, finally, our D again. There you go. Are there any questions from people in chat? We've just gone through the entire D chord cycle in like maybe 25 minutes, which is, you know, if you kept up with that, I am impressed. I tried to squeeze as much into this as possible. So what are people thinking?
So just as a reminder, if you have a question, you can raise your hand in Zoom World by using the participants box. There's a little circle at the bottom left that says raise hand, and then we can unmute you. Or you can wave at us like this, we'll unmute you, and you can ask a question.
Scott asked me to play something cool. Let me show you one more chord shape that is actually, along with that alternate A minor, probably my favorite. It's another alternate for our D here. It's up at the top left here. And it's up at the 5th fret, starts at the 5th fret. And it's an even more drony, tonic kind of D chords. So we've been working with our D no third. There you go. That's the one we've been working with. That's kind of the standard. This one up here at the 5th fret with the first finger on the A string on the 5th fret and the third finger on the 7th fret on the G string. It feels like a bit more powerful in terms of you get a lot of those D's, right? So it's D, D. 4 of them on the bottom of the guitar. Then you have a single A, you're playing the open A string on top, and then another D on the very top. So you're really emphasizing that, really heavily emphasizing that tonic note. And I love this chord for starting out a tune. So if I'm going to go back to my fingering view here. There we go. If I'm starting out a tune and I'm accompanying someone, like I like to pick jig rhythms. So here we go. I'll pick another triplet jig rhythm. If I'm starting out and I really want to start out simple and then build the chord progression from there, I love starting with this chord because it's just all tonics and 1/5. And that, I think it's such a powerful, like, it just cuts straight through. And then, you know, later on in the tune, if I want to get more complicated, if we come back around to the top, I might go for this more full chord. Or, I mean, there's other D fingerings, chord fingerings. A lot out there. If you look at that handout that I linked in chat, if you go below, so this one that I made is just these chords. If you go below it, on the one that's linked in chat, there's an extra one that has like every darn chord you could ever want in DADGAD, and then probably some extras. Yeah. So, yes. I see in the chat, Jim Malcolm is one of my favorite DADGAD guitarists. If you want another recommendation, Dick Gaughan is just incredible. I'll type his name in so you can spell it. And let's see. I typed it in and I didn't do it. Here we go. And I'm trying to think of other great DADGAD guitarists. John Doyle, a great, amazing Irish guitarist that's really founded sort of the modern school of DADGAD in guitar. Bill asks me to play a jig or something for the last 2 minutes. Okay, well, I'll play something for you for the last 2 minutes. A little sloppy there, but that's a couple of jigs. The Christy Berry set. Well, thanks everybody. I hope you had a good time. I hope you learned a bunch, and I hope you use this tuning more often. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you very much, Louis, our Albuquerque Folk Fest very own Renaissance man, from a dance of the planets to a dance on the guitar. So thank you very much, and thank everyone for attending. This is the final presentation for Workshop 2.